My involvement with Rampal struggle started in late 2014, early 2015 when there were some big conferences in Dhaka on Sundarbans. One of the major objections by both the Bangladesh and Indian groups, activist groups, environmentalist institutions, is to Rampal is it's not only a question of carbon emission. Bangladesh carbon emission is not a very major factor compared to the global. In fact, globally we burn around 7.56 billion tons of coal. This will be adding another 5 million tons of coal. But the major impact will be on the Sundarbans. And apart from the factors that Penny said, there are very critical factors. Like she mentioned about Amphan. When Amphan hit West Bengal, Amphan destroyed 10.5 lakh houses. That is over 1 million houses in West Bengal part, only in 3 districts. But since it had to, of course, the speed went down because also of landfall. Cyclone speeds reduced on landfall. But another big factor was the friction coefficient of the Sundarbans, the forest, which was which was totally denuded in the area that it hit in the West Bengal. So Bangladesh really didn't get huge impact from one of the largest cyclonic storm in the last century, 100 years. Amphan reached category 5 stage at one point. So this also gives us the importance of Sundarban. But how does Rampal connect into it? See, if you are building a big coal power plant, which will be emitting anything between 8 million tons of carbon dioxide, some sulfur dioxide, there will be a huge amount of acid, which is called acid rain, which will be coming down with the rains. And the mangrove forests are very sensitive to the pH value, to the dissolved oxygen, to the water temperature. So if you disturb this balance, mangrove forests die out. This year in January, I was in Indian Sundarbans in 8 islands in a big science outreach program. And in February, I was in the Bangladesh Sundarban with Mehdi and all. And we are finding this crisis one after the other everywhere. And then at that point also, I mentioned this. And then in May 20th, Amphan hit. So if you are bringing in one big coal power plant will not destroy Sundarban. But we have already seen by holding the hand of Rampal, there are a large number of industries, coal forging units, cement plants, everything is going ahead because the land is available, power is available, connectivity is available, and water is available. The second thing is the coal power plant don't only emit a little particulate and carbon dioxide. There will be mercury. All coal contains mercury. Mercury is a neurotoxin, and the danger of mercury as a neurotoxin is increased if that area is a wetland, which the Sundarbans area there is. And all of us probably heard about the Minamata disaster in Japan. This will be a much larger scale because the mercury, when it goes into water bodies, then there is a chance of turning into methyl mercury, and it goes into the water body means fish accumulate. Fish is bioaccumulator. So all the pollution, the Rampal coal, the basin coal ash pond is situated right on the Pashur River. The barges that come in with coal, and now the barges that come in also with fly ash from India, there are regular barge sinking incidents happening in Bhola, Pashur, Sela, all these rivers in the Sundarbans. So the acidity, the pollution level in the rivers are going up, and fish being a very large resource for livelihood and protein source for Bangladesh, millions of people in that area, probably 3 to 4 million people depend on this kind of livelihood, forest resources access and fish access, catching fish. So if you are actually allowing the entire fish resources to be poisoned, because as I said, fish is a bioaccumulator. So anything that is available in the water at a low dilution will be concentrated in the fish. And when the people eat those fish, it will be even more concentrated in our bodies. So we are in fact allowing the poisoning of all the human bodies that will be consuming the fish from there. Plus, we are allowing the poisoning of the water resources, changing their pH balance, their dissolved oxygen, because when huge amount of hot water, warm water is being will be dumped into Pashur River, the DO, the dissolved oxygen will go down, apart from many other changes. And that also creates huge problem for aquatic animals and aquatic plants. The entire aquatic life chain will be collapsing. And that we have seen in many other places. We have done work in Mundra, in the extreme western part, which is close to Pakistan on the other side. Tata Mundra and Adani Mundra, what devastation they have caused. So there will be a massive impact on local population, and this local is not only Rampal. But apart from that, today, when I visited along with an India team 2016, the Rampal site, Mongla port and the region around, there is a huge number of people whose livelihoods still are reasonably well carried out by catching crabs. And the crab is the large crabs that are available, and there is a huge number of wetlands, small ponds, medium-sized ponds. All these will be poisoned when you release so much of fly ash, so much of bottom ash and fly ash is dumped there, and so much of coal dust. So that whole area will be completely poisoned. Sundarban mangrove forest will start to get degraded fast, and then over a period of time, mangroves there will be dying out. That sign this time in February visit, Mehdi showed me also, and he also talked about there are already mangrove die-outs happening because of other industries. So this will be magnified many, many, many times. But let me quickly come into, because the question of whether Bangladesh, though I think this has not been addressed fully, whether Bangladesh needs Rampal or similar power plants. Maha talked about, Tanni talked about a little bit about the availability of electricity. But I don't think you can compare, if the comparison of megawatt hour to megawatt hour is not exact comparison. Electricity doesn't give you pleasure just by being there. Electricity is a service. Electricity is an enabler. All kinds of energy is an enabler. You have to see what electricity and energy does to human beings. How does it complement human development? And in that you will see, if Bangladesh's goal is to improve the living standards, the human development index of Bangladesh population, look at Sri Lanka. With roughly 60% of electricity consumption of India, Sri Lanka's HDI today, the Human Development Index today is 0.776. It's in the high development category. India is 0.64. It's in the medium development category with almost 65-67% extra consumption than this. Bangladesh, with less than one third the electricity consumption of India today per capita, is already at 0.61. So there are other routes of human development where you don't need to destroy your protective Sundarbans, where you don't need to poison the livelihood of your millions of fish workers, fish farmers, and fish catcher, both capture and culture fisheries. There are two kinds of fisheries that is practiced in that area, capture and culture. So both this will be devastated. So that's not needed. The other point that Bangladesh government, like the Indian government and several others, is not looking at is that over the last 15-16 years, the amount of energy needed for a certain amount of even GDP is not a very good indicator, but even this crude indicator of GDP, if you want to create extra $1,000 GDP, how much energy you need to give? We are all still using the 1970s model and those 1970s economic calculation. If you see in 2003, India used roughly around 190 kg of oil equivalent to create every $1,000 of GDP. Today that is 90, less than half. In China, 231 was the figure in 2003. Today it is 120, half. So throughout the countries, throughout the world, if you see, the amount of even GDP creation is today requires half or less than half of the energy, total energy, because electricity is a part of total energy basket, primary energy basket. So Bangladesh today should not look around the worst, look towards the worst example. Bangladesh should look towards the better example. Other reasons being, Bangladesh is one of the most congested, most high population density countries. India has around 420, Bangladesh around 1200. So if you are destroying your livelihoods, your land, your forest, protective forest, the Sundarbans protects something like 3 crore people from cyclones and storms. And it's not only the wind, because people talk about the wind. When a big tropical storm comes, there are 3 components which damage lives, which damage property and infrastructure. One is the high-speed wind, second is the storm surge, third is the heavy rain. So both the first one, the high-speed wind and the storm surge, forest, particularly mangrove forests, which are very dense, are very good at slowing down, at reducing their impact. So if you are going to have a major amount of power, electricity from coal at a very high cost, and also at a very high economic cost, forget about the environmental and social cost. Even the economic cost is, I think, close to 6 rupees, what Rampal has been earlier calculated. So this is complete stupidity, complete madness. There are very good ways, not only renewable over a period of time. I know all of you talked about Bangladesh has indigenous gas, domestic gas, until you move to more renewable, and that every kind of power, every kind of energy extraction has an impact. There is nothing called zero impact. Even renewable has an impact. Renewable has a land impact. Bangladesh being very congested, you have to also go for innovative models like agrivoltaics. You can't give it like companies in India are doing, give it a huge amount of land to developers so that they cordon off the land in the name of solar parks. That cannot be done in Bangladesh, as it should not be done in India. But there is 3 times the reason not to be done in Bangladesh, because the population density is almost 3 times. And intensity of land use in Bangladesh is even more than in India because of the dependence on agriculture and land dependent livelihood. Land means land, water, forest dependent livelihoods. So the intensity of land dependence in Bangladesh is far more than even in India. And in India, it is far more than in many European countries, American countries who don't understand these relationships very well. So I think there are ways, very clear ways, but I said even in the economic term, there are very clear pathways for if you want to develop your population, develop their standard of living, develop their qualities of life. If you just want to develop your GDP, even then, this Rampal and coal power plants are very bad investments. In terms of economic investment, these are very bad investment. So I think I'm out of my time, Vidya. So I'll end here and I'll be
Yes,
happy to answer any question. Thank you.